up? I'm ill.Gates, and you are watching Studiofeed. Keep it locked. I probably wouldn't even be anywhere. You know, I probably would have. I'd probably be in a cubicle, hating my life and doing graphic design right now. If it weren't for music, I really didn't have a lot of faith in humanity or the future or anything like that until, you know, music really kind of became a real presence in my life. Dancing, art, I've been into making short films and photography a lot too. Writing, I don't really see any of them as that different, you know. I mean, they're all like, I mean, even just the parallels between graphic design and music, they're basically the same thing. And yeah, I don't really see any kind of distinctions. I mean, music is my primary focus, but I don't really see it as like, you know, I'm musician Dylan over here and graphic designer Dylan over there. It's all just, you know, it's all just part of how I live, you know. And I think art, if you are an artist or a musician or whatever, it's best viewed as just another bodily function, you know, and it's just this stuff that just happens every day because that's who you are and how you live. One thing that I think that people need to realize is that any kind of moral debate about technology is completely useless. You might as well get upset about the fact that 2 + 2 = 4. You know, like it's just not relevant. Technology is progressing, and you can either figure out how you can work with those directions and with the momentum that is created and driven by human progress, especially technological progress, or you can become obsolete. It's really like, you know, I see so many people who are like, you know, home tapings killing the music industry, or MP3s are killing vinyl, or whatever. Like, there's supposed to be some kind of moral arbiter of all technological inventions. If your music is something that you're driven to do and you want to you know, make music with your life or art or whatever, you have to figure out how to work with that technology and not against it. And you can't become set in your ways, and you can't, you know, become a grumpy old man or woman and just sit there lamenting the morality of whether that progress is happening or not. The good news is that these technologies are created to serve needs, human needs, you know, needs in people's lives and needs in the market. And those forces ultimately are going to make things much, much easier for the people who work with those new tools. When I first started producing music, I had an MPC 2000, and you know, I got it home and I was like, great, you know, I'll be able to do anything with this. And I get my first record out and I go to sample it, and it's like out of memory. And you used to have to do things like pitch the records up to +8, sample them, and then pitch them back down to save memory in the sampler, because you had like 8 megs of memory to work with, you know, and like load samples in off of diskette. And that was awful. It was awful, awful, awful. And you know, the history of music, there's never been a time when it's easier or more fun to make music, or easier to distribute it, or easier to get known, or easier to get fans. And there's new genres of music every year. Things are changing so fast now that you don't have a bunch of like grumpy old label dudes telling you to sound like everybody else all the time, you know. And it's like, you know, I hate to say it, but you know, a lot of the people whose lives were enabled at a business level by the previous technologies of distribution, especially the distribution and manufacturing of music, those people had anything but the interests of the artists at heart, and they, you know, they were there to basically extend and perpetuate their own power like any human being is, right? And if you're not an artist, you don't really have any business telling other people what to create or not, you know. And if you're going to actively impede artists and tell them to be more and more boring and uncreative, good fucking riddance, honestly. And there are so many ways to make a living as a musician, especially as an independent musician now. It's never been easier, you know. So really, you know, I think that the voices that were decrying the changes that have been happening, you know, I think that debate is just over. It's just over. You've either adapted or you're out of work. A great deal of my music is written while I'm traveling at random friends' houses, and a lot of it does not involve any of the equipment that you see in this room, or even me bringing my computer there. I have a backup library that I store in the back end of my website, and anywhere that there's internet, I can get those samples and those project folders and go to work. The entire Schmonday School EP, every single one of those tracks was done in one session or less with a friend. That's generally how it goes down for me. I mean, this studio, I like doing all my mix downs here because I know the studio, I know the sound of the room, I know the speakers. You know, I'm very, very comfortable here. But for me, it's really, you know, the friends that create the space, and, you know, just that feeling of being inspired will transform any space into a studio. And, you know, I mean, I've written songs just in headphones on a plane before and still had that be a totally rewarding and fun experience. So, I mean, this place is, you know, this is where I live, and it's really, you know, I like to set it aside and have like a whiteboard and, you know, a special room to do it, just because when you're on a computer, it's really easy to it's really easy to have all of your time just blur together into this mass of computer use. So I find that having the space here, you know, it physically and mentally separates me from, you know, going on the internet or, you know, downloading tracks or whatever, right? Like, it's nice to come in here and just mentally be like, okay, it's time to work. But that space can be anywhere, and it's really, you know, it's really the mental space that I think a lot more important than any physical space. You know, basically my MO when I'm deciding what I want to do next creatively, I sit there and I go, okay, what assumption is there present in my body of work that I have yet to question? You know, what is everybody else doing and what am I always doing, and how can I do the opposite? And because music for me has been always so much about hanging out with friends and about collaborating, and pretty much like, you know, 80% of my discography is collaborations, you know. So the next album, rather than collaborating with other producers, I'm going to be collaborating with like vocalists and session musicians. So I'm going to be the only producer on the next album. And then so I'm a couple tracks into it. I've been working with you know, a lot of the kind of old favorites, but some new people too, and that's really exciting. So you know, I'm really looking forward to that as well. But yeah, for the next probably like 8 months, I'm just going to be traveling all over the place, you know, and just teaching and doing this new stage show. And, you know, I'm going to be bringing Nunik with me, my girlfriend. I'm going to be bringing her with me this time. So yeah, it's really it's going to be a pretty exciting year. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't forget to have fun. The most valuable thing that you have is your time. So don't waste a fucking second.
Oh, yeah. I go cross river Jordan.